Good evening, everyone. I'm Smeel Doyle, and this is my case study analysis number 4, Institutional Effectiveness at Metropolitan Community College. So the basic empirical facts. We know that we're at a Metropolitan Community College, which is within an urban college district comprised of 8 community colleges in total. We also know that in the fall of 1993, which is when this all kind of starts, there were 80,000 students enrolled across the 8 campuses, and they had a predominantly Black and Hispanic demographic. We also know the most significant fact that the district had become very unstable due to constant shifts in administration, as well as failing initiatives put forward by the administration, as well as unclear boundaries of the relationship between the central office and the city hall, as well as the campuses themselves. So the causes. As stated previously, there was a change in the student demographic as well as the educational needs, which therefore caused a shift in program enrollment. The more Black and Hispanic students that enrolled, the higher the enrollment in the GED programs as well as the adult learning programs. The constant change in leadership created a lack of faculty trust toward the administration. It seemed as though every time a new leader was appointed, they would try to start a new initiative. And when that leader transitioned into a different role, their initiative, for lack of better terms, failed. As stated previously, there was a struggle between the central office and the 8 campuses, as well as what that relationship looked like. And most importantly, there was no working definition of institutional effectiveness and what that looked like. And the data that had been previously collected in prior years was not useful enough to assess institutional effectiveness or what that looked like, how the institutions served their students and the students' needs. So while reading through this case study, I felt as though it was pretty clear and easy to follow. However, there were 4 questions that I had after reading through the case about twice. The first one was, how were the 4 presidents that served in the central office selected? Was it based on seniority, certain qualities that these 4 presidents possessed? And that question led to the next question, which isn't even on the slide, but led to the question of, were the 4 presidents that served in the central office or selected to serve, did they equally represent the different type of campuses that created the 8 colleges within the district? Another question was, does being independently accredited have an impact as opposed to the regular accreditation process? I felt as though the case placed a lot of emphasis on the fact that these community colleges were independently accredited, and I wasn't really sure what that meant in general or for the colleges and how they were run as well. Another question was, were the campus geographic and demographic differences a factor in defining institutional effectiveness? So as we know from the first or second page of this case study, all of the college campuses did not look the same geographically or demographically. So when they were trying to create a definition for institutional effectiveness, was it just a blanket definition, or was it one that could focus on the type of student that was enrolled at each college and what that student may have, or that type of student needed? And the final question I had was, why didn't Chancellor Potvin have more of a hands-on role in creating this definition and collecting the data? I felt as though the Chancellor was just delegating things to the leaders that kind of worked below him. So I wasn't really sure why he didn't have more of a hands-on role. So again, I felt as though this case was pretty easy to follow as it pertained to where the district was, where it currently is, and where it wants to be. So I only have 3 warranted actions. The first one being connection of the mission and the change initiatives. So As Treat and Bernard 2012 state, the mission of the community college has been debated since the earliest days of its existence. And Kumo and Wacher 2000 state that throughout America, particularly in urban centers, colleges and universities are linking arms with their neighbors to breathe new life into distressed communities. So, as we know, this district is an urban district. And so the mission focuses on accessibility, affordability, and transferable skills, which can be used when the students move on to four-year institutions, if they move on to four-year institutions. So I feel as though, although the working definition of institutional effectiveness is important, it's also important to ensure that that working definition fits in with the mission. So ensuring that the community college education is accessible, is affordable, as well as effective with the transferable skills. As stated previously, when the demographic shifted to more Black and Hispanic students, there was a shift in program enrollment. And as we know, some of these students may have been coming from low socioeconomic statuses, meaning that the GED programs or the adult learning programs are more cost effective, more time effective, more flexible with the learning styles and the everyday schedules of these students, whether they have an outside job outside of school or multiple jobs, whether they have a family to help support or children to take care of. The GED programs and the adult learning programs are helping them get the education they need faster than the standard community college programs or the four-year college programs. So no matter what the change initiative is, it's important that these community colleges ensure that it stays connected with their mission, because the mission is usually what pulls the students in. The second warranted action: less politics and more collaboration. So one of the things that really struck me throughout this case is the fact that the city hall has such a say in what happens on the college campuses. And while I know that it's important for the state or the community in which the college is centered to have a role, especially because it's a state funded school, it's also important to ensure that there's a clear line, clear boundaries drawn, so that the city hall, the central office know what their role is, and the community college and those who work on the campus know what their role is to reach the same goal. As Rigaud 2014 states, community colleges are often the vanguard of institutional collaboration. So while there are 8 institutions that make up this district, it's important for them to constantly collaborate to reach the goal that they want. Rigaud also stated that institutional success is often a function of organized, long-range, and cooperative relationships within and amongst these institutions. So the fact that there is such a divide between the central office, the city hall, the board of trustees, versus the actual 8 college campuses, that gap needs to be bridged. The presidents should be in the colleges and not working from the central office. I feel like the presidents, if they're working in the central office, they're not going to know what is happening on campus or what their faculty, staff, and students need to be successful as a community. And again, the clear boundaries need to be set between the political side of education as well as the actual educational side of education. And lastly, there needs to be an implementation of early intervention programs and protocols at these community colleges. So one thing that really stuck out to me within this case is it talked about, the students who were enrolling, they came in less and less prepared for the college education and academic course load year after year. As Norris 2014 states, since the early 1980s, a majority of the nation's graduates have enrolled in colleges soon after high school. So that being said, the community college route may be due to a lack of college preparedness, maybe the financial aspect, maybe the community college is the only accessible education to that student at the time. So it's important for the institutions to understand the audience in which it is serving, understand its customers. Its customers are the students. So in order to understand the students, they need to understand the socioeconomic status of these students, as well as the program interest of these students. There also needs to be more collaboration with local high schools. As Stern 2012 states, most high school students aren't receiving enough counseling or guidance early on in their education. If the right tools aren't provided to these high school students, the level of college accessibility is not going to be as high. So I feel as though this district of community colleges should have more of a high school outreach program, whether it be having college fairs, working directly with the secondary education institutions, within their district to ensure that these Hispanic and Black students who are enrolling in their schools feel as though they are prepared for their next step in education. And of course, as stated in the case study, once the working definition of institutional effectiveness was created and the necessary data was collected through assessing the faculty and through assessing the students, I feel as though that data should be utilized to create these early intervention programs, because the more prepared the high school seniors are to enter college, the more prepared they'll be to move on to the four-year institutions that come after the community colleges, which is a major part of this district's mission statement. And as stated in the very first slide, ensuring that any initiative is connected and intertwined with the district or college's mission is the most important factor. So that is my case analysis. These are my references. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a good night.